Welcome, everybody. Starter sit for Fantasy Week 15, Part 2. We've got 7 games to break down today. And, of course, look back at a horror show from Thursday night.
No.
What?
Just skip it.
Seriously.
Ooh,
just take the night off like Cooper Kupp did.
To Fantasy Football today, presented by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Sorry, guys. Now you can talk. That was pretty rough.
Pretty rough? I think I lost 6 leagues just on last night alone.
You never know.
I know. You beat me in the FFT. Congratulations.
No, stop.
Heath won in YOLO. Congratulations. I'm done. Absolutely done.
No.
The old reverse kibosh.
I have literally one league where Purdy is my starting quarterback and both Rams receivers are in the lineup. Done. Absolutely done. No chance.
No, that's not true. I was going to.
No, it's true. It's true.
Oh, wait. So you're just quitting on the league? You're not even going to bother?
No chance. There's no chance.
No, there's always a chance.
There's no chance when two of my players.
Let's say you're watching you right now, and you're looking for advice on how to overcome this. What would you say?
Go play DFS. Have a great rest of season.
In all seriousness, I did want to share this. The night that Jamar Chase scored, I think, 55 points against the Ravens, Thursday night, I lost. I had 2 Jamar Chase leagues. I lost. Think about
Good. Now you know how I feel. We lost. Congratulations.
No, I lost one of them. I lost one.
Except he lost earlier in the year. You're losing in the playoffs. That hurts.
Hold on. I'm saying I lost a 55-point game on Thursday. Go look at some of your lineups that have won recently. I bet there was a stinker or 2 in there. Don't worry about it.
Done. Congratulations. You advanced in FFT. Heath won in YOLO. I'm trying to think any other ones that involve any of us. No, that's probably it. Congratulations to my friend Jason. He beat me in the league where I started Purdy and 2 Rams receivers. Done.
Well, Matthew Stafford had the 9th fewest passing yards of his career with a minimum of 20 pass attempts. He threw for 160 yards, and Puka Nacua had 97 of them. He was the only one who was good. Brock Purdy, this is his 2nd game in his last 3 with 4 or fewer fantasy points. And, of course, the other one was that snow game in Buffalo. But
they're gonna score 50 points next week in Miami.
Yeah, of course. He also scored 2.4 fantasy points in week 16 of last year against Baltimore. So some bad playoff performances in the fantasy playoffs for Brock Purdy. He's better in the regular playoffs, but we probably won't know that this year. All right, so instead of kind of going, oh, you're going to start them next week and all that, because we probably are for most of these guys. And the rain.
Well, no, I won't be starting them at all.
All right, you're out.
The rain was obviously a factor in the first half, but not the second half. Do you adjust your strategy based on Thursday's game?
I just go write a check.
Here's my entry fee. So sad, Jamie.
Just quits on it all.
Listen, you got to be realistic sometimes. It was a great season. I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed my fantasy leagues. Go screw yourself, Cooper Kupp.
I've never seen this. Jamie is very even keeled. He, by the way, in our fantasy football today league that he's already crowned me in, he started Jennings and Kittle. I started Puka Nacua. I have a 55% chance to win according to the projections.
No, you won. You did won.
But in all seriousness, Dave, that's the one who's not flipping out right now. Do you adjust your strategy? You try to hit the upside plays if you had a bad night, or play it safe if your opponent had a bad night or anything? Or do you just set your lineup like you normally would?
Never quit, never surrender. And I don't think Jamie is really doing either of those things. I would look at my lineup and say, all right, do I have anybody in now who just doesn't have a high ceiling? Maybe somebody that I'm starting for like the safe play for 10 PPR points, maybe 15 if they find the end zone. And do I have anybody on my bench that I'm willing to take a risk with? I'm down big, or I'm projected down big. Is there somebody that I can put into my lineup that's got high upside? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at Jamie's team in the FFT league, and I'm going to see if there's anything his team could do to try and compete this week.
No, against me. But I will just give
you down.
I will give my 2 cents, and I am not going to start Jameson Williams over some top 15 or 20, like AJ Brown.
I got this question on the radio today. I got a question on the radio this morning. Jameson Williams versus Khalil Shakir in PPR. So to me, they're close to begin with. If you're talking about who's got the highest ceiling because you feel like you're chasing points, you're going to play Jameson over Shakir. Like, that's close enough where you can make that decision. I see where you're going.
Yes, I agree completely. Yep.
But then again, you could have Jameson Williams who, drops a touchdown like Deebo Samuel did. So thanks, Deebo.
You didn't start Deebo. Get out of here.
I did in the podcast league. Had to.
Oh man.
Yeah. Another bad night for Deebo. Okay, here's Jamie's team. He's got Burrow at quarterback. That guy can always go off. He's got Jonathan Taylor, and he's got both Bucks running backs. So he's going to start one of Rashad White or Bucky Irving.
No, my luck, Bucky will come back and screw over both of them.
Well, maybe. Brian Thomas Jr.'s in your lineup. Garrett Wilson's in your lineup. Cortland Sutton is in your lineup.
I don't like to know this.
And oh man, Adam, you're not going to like this. Jamie's got the Ravens defense. And then I look at Adam's team. Okay, you've got Jalen Hurts, Rico Dowdle, Joe Mixon, AJ Brown. You're starting
winning
Odunze.
Winning roster.
You're starting. Jamie's going to win this.
I know. That's what I'm saying. My team.
Your receivers are weak.
I had Christian McCaffrey in that league. You know, he's got it. All right. So anyway, listen. I just want to.
You're starting Hurts over Goff. I wouldn't do that.
I'm probably starting Goff, but listen, I don't adjust your lineup too much. You don't know who has the most upside, and you don't know how the rest of your week is going to play out. Don't start a guy that you think is going to be worse than player A because he might have a bigger game. You're going to kick yourself. But you're going to kick yourself if you lose by 3 points because you benched someone who gave you 12 for someone who gave you 6 because you thought the guy who gave you 6 could, had more upside.
Or you could say the exact same thing the other way. You lose by 3 points because you didn't play the guy with higher upside who came through. Now you're not going to do anything ridiculous. You're not starting, Tyler Lockett over Mike Evans or something like that. But I think we know who the high upside receivers are at this point. You talked about Jameson Williams. Ridley and Westbrook-Akine are in there. We'll talk about other ones as we go through the day. Like those are the types of players that I will look at starting over veteran receivers that just aren't as exciting or younger receivers that haven't been proven. Like Adam, if you've got Odunze in your lineup. If you had Westbrook-Akine, I might make that switch and play the higher upside.
Oh, I see. Okay. I mean, we're talking about 2 receivers that I don't really want to be starting, but Nick Westbrook-Akine does not really fall into this category, but if you're talking about him against Odunze, I'm talking about who's a safe wide receiver that, maybe people think has a lot of upside.
A safe wide receiver that has a lot of upside, or a safe wide receiver that I would sit for someone with a lot of upside.
Okay, for example, would you sit Zay Flowers for Nick Westbrook-Akine? No way, right? You wouldn't do that.
Probably not, because we know that Zay Flowers has that same type of upside, even though I'm worried about the number of targets.
There's such a small sample size of what we do. What we should do is go build a time machine, and then Isaac Duran don't.
All right, let's move on here.
Let me give you one other name, though. Adam, you and I studied DK Metcalf yesterday.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't look as good as he did earlier in the season. He's clearly playing through something. That might be somebody that if I'm down big, I would sit for someone with higher upside.
I would not sit him for Nick Westbrook-Akine. No way. And I would not sit him for who is something
for Jameson Williams?
I would not. To think that DK Metcalf doesn't have big upside when I've looked at 2 plays in the last 3 weeks where he's been open for a touchdown and Geno Smith missed them.
That's a problem.
And Jameson Williams, he has like 1 or 2 end zone targets all year. He never gets targeted there. That's what I'm saying. Like upside is perceived. It's not necessarily reality. All right.
No, nothing is reality. Cooper Kupp is unfortunate reality.
I guess
do you think anyone on the planet would have said Cooper Kupp would have delivered 0 catches?
No.
Well, reality is the bad part of fantasy.
Luka outscored the entire receiving core for both teams by himself.
That's amazing. All right, Sunday will help you out with a little therapy session.
And let's give Kyren Williams credit. He had a good game.
It was fine.
It was all right.
Yeah, it didn't win you a league. Sunday, 11:30 a.m.
I don't know if anybody from that game won you a league.
YouTube.com/fantasy football today.
Cardi.
We're on CBS Sports Network Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please check that out. Let's do some news and notes. So just to recap some. By the way, today's Friday the 13th, and we're going to be doing some spooky stuff throughout the show.
I'm scared of the Thursday night game.
Yeah, you should be. But I got some spooky music to play, and we're going to give you scary stats for every game to try to scare you off your favorite players.
How happy are you right now if you played against anybody from last night, by the way?
I'm thrilled.
Like Adam should be doing the dance.
I didn't know that. I didn't look at
Adam's going to lose to you.
I didn't look at the lineup. And then I saw the score this morning. It's on the main page screen. It's just so the score. And I was like, That's a lot of points for Jamie. He definitely didn't have one player. He must have had at least two. So I did look and I saw you had two players. All right. And it was like
I beat Heath by 80 points in our YOLO league, and he had a good week. I had an amazing week, and I have Stafford, Kyron, and Puka in that league.
Yeah,
and it's over, done.
Oh,
that one you're done in, but the one against Adam, I think you're going to win.
No, done in both.
All right. Tommy DeVito starting for the Giants. Jake Haener starting for the Saints. Aiden O'Connell wants to
Pick
play.
them up. They have upside. Guess what? Newsflash. They'll be better than Purdy.
Right. Start Jake Haener, sit Brock Purdy.
That's so funny. Aiden O'Connell might play. He wants to play. Joe Burrow has a knee injury, says he's fine. Will Levis practiced in full again. Justin Herbert practiced. He's good. Running back news, you got to keep an eye. Tony Pollard's faked us out a few times this year, but he has missed practice each of the first 2 days of this week with an ankle injury. So I was almost dropped Tajay Spears last night. I said, you know what? Wait, not yet.
Well, I think people should make sure that Tajay Spears is no longer available on waivers.
Yeah.
He was available in a couple of our leagues. I picked him up this morning.
Ken Walker missed practice. Still not expecting him. Sunday night game. So I really hope that's not a Sunday morning, we don't know kind of situation. Both Bears running backs still out. Roshan Johnson still in the concussion protocol. DeAndre Swift missed practice with a groin injury. They're playing Monday, so that was their first practice of the week. And Travis Homer left with an injury too. I don't even know what to say there, but it's probably
Homer's been practicing. He left with a head injury, but
okay, good.
And I would imagine that Swift will get into practice by Saturday.
Boy, you talk about someone who scares me this week and someone who baffles me. It's Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara hasn't scored in 7 straight games, and yet he's a top 16 running back per game in half PPR, and even better in full PPR in that stretch. So Kamara's missed 2 practices with an illness, though, so keep an eye on that. Bucky Irving missed practice. Amari DeMarcado missed practice for Arizona. Aaron Jones was limited. Why do I bring up Amari DeMarcado? If he doesn't play, that could be more catches for James Conner. Aaron Jones was limited, and Alexander Madison, we know this. Sincere McCormick's going to start, even though Madison's going to play. Demarcus Robinson. Oh, sorry. He shouldn't read that one anymore. He played. Did nothing.
It's better than Cooper Kupp.
See, we're not expecting George Pickens. I think we are expecting Keon Coleman, right?
Yes.
Josh Downs, we're expecting?
Yes, practicing full.
Okay. Mike Evans and Sterling Shepard missed practice. Ladd McConkey still limited. Rashad Bateman practiced in full. Marquise Brown could return soon for the Chiefs. Dave's been talking about him for a couple weeks as a beat the waiver wire guy.
It's more of a stash on the IR kind of guy.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, Robinson was as good as Cooper Kupp on Thursday.
Right.
But both of them were terrible compared to Ricky Pearsall.
Cedric Tillman and Romeo Doubs. I don't know if they're going to play Cedric Tillman. It looks like Dobbs is trending in the right direction. Not so sure about
Dobbs is practicing in full, but he just has not cleared the concussion protocol. I don't know if Tillman's practiced in full officially.
And Tillman's interesting because Njoku is probably out this week. So that, you know what? Let's talk about that. And with Njoku likely out with a hamstring injury against the Chiefs, Jamie, how does that change things? We talked about this game yesterday. How does that change things for the Browns receiving core?
I don't think it changes things much for the Browns receiving core, except for maybe Elijah Moore if Tillman is back. If Tillman is out, then the ancillary pieces for the Browns I really don't have much interest in. I don't think Jordan Akins or the other tight ends there in Cleveland are going to necessarily be someone you're starting this week. These are not the type of players you're using to chase if you're down, for example, Thursday night. But it makes me a little bit more nervous about Jameis, because you're still talking about a quarterback that needs a reliable option in the middle of the field. And Njoku has been so clutch for him. He's been such a good red zone option for him. So you take away Njoku. I dropped Jameis a couple of spots in my rankings. So I would still consider him a streamer, but he's behind where I had him initially before. He's behind Bo Nix. He's behind Mahomes. He's behind Richardson, which I had already. So I think the ceiling is much lower. And if you look at it, we don't talk about this enough. Our sports line projections have been really good this season. They have Jameis 28th.
Whoa.
So I don't think he's going to do that, obviously, but they are way out on Jameis Winston. So,
where were they on Purdy and Stafford?
I'm sure like everybody else, probably really high on
29th and 30th.
Look, I agree with you. I think that there is a problem if Njoku doesn't play. He's been a short area guy on top of being an an end zone target for Winston. But if Tillman's back, I can't help myself. I still think that Jameis is going to have the type of volume and certainly has enough targets to put up some good numbers.
All right. And Tyler, never mind. Forget him. Evan Ingram. I got to update my notes. Evan Ingram missed practice with a shoulder injury. So I think Doug Peterson expressed optimism about Ingram, but we'll see. And Trey McBride limited with a knee, should be fine. All right. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use the bonus code FANTASY. What an offer you're going to get. Up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. Let's take a little break here. And when we come back, we'll do one question for each game after this. Okay, here we go. Buffalo at Detroit. Are there any, yes, I'm asking this, are there any must-start wide receivers in this game?
Tim Patrick, Matt Collins. Yes, there are must-start wide receivers in this game.
Okay, how many?
There's one, and potentially two. Amon-Ra St. Brown is still a must-start wide receiver, and Khalil Shakir is a borderline must-start wide receiver.
I would call Shakir a must-start.
Yeah, do you think Shakir is better than the 12-ish points he usually gives you?
I think that's where you start. And so, look, he's obviously better in PPR than the other formats because he doesn't score touchdowns consistently. And that's not necessarily a staple of what Josh Allen has been doing, is throwing touchdowns to his wide receivers consistently. So you do have Keon Coleman back. You're coming off a game where Amari Cooper had 14 targets, and this feels like this could be a similar type of back and forth type of game where Josh Allen's throwing a lot. So I think all the receivers are in play here with Kincaid back also. So, we haven't seen this for a long time, with everybody healthy, with a healthy Amari Cooper, knowing the system, this just hasn't been, okay, now you see what Buffalo has to offer rest of season. So I think Shakir is a number 2 wide receiver. I just wouldn't necessarily call him a must start. I mean, we had a conversation at the start of the show about maybe Jameson Williams over Shakir if you're looking for most upside. So Shakir is on the cusp of that. He's a must-start wide receiver in 3 receiver leagues. And in PPR, you can definitely make the argument that he should be a must-start wide receiver. But you said it, 12 points. That's not must-start.
Yeah. All right. Chicago's at Minnesota. Dave, is this a bounce-back game for the Bears passing game? 23 pass attempts in a horrible game last week at San Francisco, but the Vikings see the most pass attempts in the NFL.
Yeah, if you want to say that it's a volume play for Caleb Williams, you can. But I thought he took a step back 2 games ago, and last week was horrible for Caleb. And I heard what Jacob Gibbs had to say on Beyond the Box Score about these Bears wide receivers, and he basically called them all like risky flex plays. And I tend to agree. The line isn't as good. Caleb is still jumpy. The play calling is weird. The timing is off between Caleb and some of his receivers. I know it's Minnesota, and I know they've given up a lot of points to wide receivers, but they are going to get in Caleb Williams' face. And I have a hard time trusting these guys. DJ Moore is no better than a flex. Keenan Allen is a low-end flex. Odunze, you're starting him, Adam. I don't feel good starting him. He wasn't the first read on either of his touchdowns last week. I want to start the Vikings DST. I think they're going to get a ton of sacks. I think they're going to get a ton of turnovers. And I think the Bears offense is going to make people feel a little upset.
Yeah, no, my option right now would be Cedric Tillman or Rome Odunze, or if I'm lucky, Tajay Spears would be an easy one. But no, actually, because I would start Rome Odunze over Tank Dell. I'm not, like, my team's really not that good. But
yeah, that's why you're going to lose to Jamie.
I think I am. Okay, next one here is Green Bay at Seattle. Jamie, excluding the running backs in this game, which we're expecting it to be Charbonnet and Jacobs, which 2 players are you most confident in as starters in Green Bay at Seattle?
JSN's an easy one. And then, is there a second guy? No, there's not.
Okay, who would be next if you had to pick one? Metcalf, Love, Geno.
It would be
Tucker
Metcalf.
Kraft?
It would be
Yes.
Metcalf.
Okay.
Kraft makes me a little nervous with Romeo Doubs coming back. I mean, his numbers have been amazing in the 2.5 games since Doubs suffered the concussion, and they were good without it. So it's a toss up between Kraft and Metcalf, because Metcalf has been so underwhelming for the last month. And we said it, Adam, full practices. Well, what happened on Thursday? He went from full on Wednesday to limited on Thursday with the shoulder again. So I don't know if he's 100%. And that's really the biggest concern. Is he playing at his best? And you said it. He's missed some throw. Geno's missed some throws. That's a part of it, though. It's not just all on Metcalf. It's on the quarterback, who hasn't exactly been great. So I'm going to say no. There are not two players that I'm most confident in. It's JSN, it's Josh Jacobs, it's Zach Charbonnet if there is no Ken Walker, and then the rest of the guys are question marks.
All right, next up, New England is at Arizona. Dave, who's a better flex, Marvin Harrison Jr. or Ramondre Stevenson?
I'll take Harrison. I think that game script probably won't hurt him as much as it might hurt Ramondre if the Cardinals build a lead, and they can build it with Harrison. We've seen Harrison get some good target volume really over the last few weeks. Hopefully he can convert it into some good production and a touchdown. That's really been the key for him. When he scores, fantasy production is usually good.
When he scores, yeah. All right, Dallas is at Carolina. Give me some players, Jamie, that you would start Adam Thielen over. Some running backs or wide receivers.
DK Metcalf. Trying to think where I have him now. Darnell Mooney.
How about Rico Dowdle?
No.
How about CeeDee Lamb?
No,
not Lamb. I might start Thielen over Dowdle.
I'd start Thielen over Stevenson. I'd start him over Najee. I'd start him over Marvin Harrison. I'd start him over Neighbors.
Yep.
I'd start him over
Bears guys.
DJ Moore over Thielen, but the other guys, yes. Look, he's been fantastic the last 2 weeks, and it's a very good matchup.
All right. Washington is at New Orleans. Dave, Brian Robinson Jr., Jamie's start of the week, or Alvin Kamara?
In non-PPR, it's easy for me. It's Robinson. In full PPR, I think it's close just because Kamara can rack up those catches, but I'm going to give the nod to Robinson. I've seen the track record of running backs against this Saints defense. It's really, really good. I think it's like 10 running backs have had at least 12 touches against New Orleans this year, and all of them have had at least 16 PPR points. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that Brian Robinson can find 12 touches and come through for 16 PPR points. No Austin Eckler, that's obviously going to help him. And he, coming off of a bye too, like he's going to be rested. Hopefully won't lose too much work to Jeremy McNichols. And Robinson shapes up to be, I know Jamie's got him top 10. I think that's kind of risky. I've got him 16th. I think he's a really good number 2 running back this week.
All right. I'm making the change right now. Going goodbye, Kamara. Hello, Brian Robinson Jr. Okay.
Who are you sitting? I mean, who else are you starting?
Juwan Jennings, obviously. Garrett Wilson is my flex. Jameer Gibbs is my other running back.
Oh.
I'm good with it.
Kamara versus Garrett Wilson is going to be a tough one for me.
Yeah.
I'd take Wilson.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I'll talk. One of the stats in the 3 games that one of the scary stat, Alvin Kamara had 30 carries in 3 games without Derek Carr. 30 carries. That's bad because they got killed in all of them. They lost by 18 or more. I think Hayner's going to be better than Rattler was, but we'll talk about that later. Baltimore at the Giants. All right. Who's the best flex in a tricky game here? Tyrone Tracy Jr., Zay Flowers, or Malik Neighbors? Who's the best flex?
PPR?
Let's do half and then full.
Half, I would go Tracy. Full, I would go Neighbors.
I will go Neighbors in full. I will go Flowers in half and non.
You guys ready to break down some games? Here we go.
Break it down.
I'd like to break the Rams 49ers game.
Break it down. Buffalo, Detroit. Break it down. All right. Here's your
That's not what I was referring to.
What were you referring to?
If you know, you know.
Okay. Buffalo at Detroit. Here's your scary stat of the game on Friday the 13th. Detroit has allowed only 4 carries longer than 10 yards in their last 5 games. Running backs are averaging 2.9 yards per carry against Detroit in their last 5 games. We're hoping Aleem McNeil can play, but this is an easy one. We're going to sit DeAndre Swift, right?
Oh, what game are
Wait,
we
I
talking
mean,
What team is DeAndre Swift on?
sorry. He also has a terrible matchup, and that's our next game. But for this game, this is a tough one. Are we going to sit James Cook? I apologize. I got to.
So here's an interesting thing with James Cook, and I don't think most people have the luxury to sit him. So if you have a loaded backfield, then yes, you should do it. What did he do against the Chiefs?
Not good, right?
They scored twice.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's still on a great offense, and I know the Lions' run defense is great. What did Josh Jacobs do against them last week?
Yeah, terrible per carry, but he scored 3 times, right?
But and this is the type of thing you're looking at. Their run defense is great. You mentioned McNeil coming back will certainly help. They're still so beat up. They're now still on their third linebacker with the injuries to Anzalone and Malcolm Rodriguez. So I don't think you use the sample size. I was listening. I was really curious about what sample size you can use. The 9-game sample size obviously is great. The more recent sample size is probably not as great, especially when you factor in what Jacobs did from a fantasy point perspective.
No, so it is. It is. I said 5 games are giving up 2.9 yards per carry. Just they happen to give up 3 touchdowns to Jacobs last week. But make no mistake, this run defense is ridiculous. And Jamie, I think that James Cook is going to be one of those guys that people look at the matchup, they look at what he did last week, and they say, oh, I started Cooper Kupp. Should I get James Cook out of my lineup and play? Gosh, I don't even know who it would be, but they probably don't think I'm going to get
running back.
I'm going to get I hope not. They wouldn't go that far.
I hope not either.
No, but yeah. So this is where people come down to, and you're 100% right. It's not an easy matchup. I'm not making the case as an easy matchup by any stretch, but I think it's just a matter of what the rest of your team looks like. So we got a question here: James Cook or Tony Pollard? For me, that's easy. It's Tony Pollard. So when you're talking, and if it was Tyjae Spears replacing Tony Pollard, I would say Tyjae Spears over James Cook also. When you're looking at your roster, and you have a James Cook who you drafted, who's been awesome, he got me to this point, or Rico Dowdle, who do I really want to trust Rico Dowdle? That's easy. You're going Rico Dowdle over him. Brian Robinson Jr. Easy.
Are you? You're going. Okay, wait. You're definitely going Dowdle over Cook?
Easily.
Okay.
Easily. So
you agree?
When I look at my rankings, how I did it, I don't know where Dave has these guys ranked. There's 3 or 4 guys that don't have a lot of work in the passing game that you're counting them to score touchdowns, and hopefully they can have some success running the ball. The 2 guys that come to mind for me are Jonathan Taylor and James Cook. And so they're in similar type of spots. I like the matchup better for Taylor, so I have Taylor ranked ahead of Cook. But you need Cook to do something a little bit different than he's been doing recently, which is not catching the ball. And so if that happens in this game, then he should have the chance to make some plays out in space. If they're just going to give him 10 carries, you got to hope he scores. And we know that's difficult with Josh Allen because when they get down there, that's typically Allen's, territory. So Rachaad White over James Cook this week is easy. I'm trying to think anybody else that may have been on your bench.
Jonathan Taylor.
That's what I said. To me, Taylor is better than James Cook this week.
All right. Well, I just want to point out one thing for Cook. It's not necessarily Josh Allen territory near the goal line. They have, I think, the same amount of carries inside the 5, and James Cook has scored a ton of touchdowns this season. He's got 11 rushing touchdowns. And he's had an up and down year. He has not had 2 straight bad games. He has not had 2 straight games with fewer than 15.5 PPR fantasy points at any point this season.
That's why he's not an outright sit.
Absolutely. But you guys have him around 18th, 20th. So, okay, I think everyone's on the same page with James Cook. He's not an automatic start. He's definitely not an automatic sit. Josh Allen is an automatic start. Khalil Shakir is the highest ranked. He's around 24th or so in the rankings. And he's getting more targets lately. Now, Coleman's been injured. Cooper's playing half the snaps. But his target share, Khalil Shakir's target share since week 8 is 27%. And we expect a ton of points in this game. So that's a really good sign. If you could keep that up, that'd be great. Let me ask you about Amari Cooper, because we've talked about Jamison Williams, Dave, as a high upside guy.
Sure.
Boy, if they could say, all right, Amari Cooper's healthy now, let's go throw him out there for 75% of the snaps. He was 53% last week, and he had 14 targets. Do you think Cooper is a high upside play?
You can play the music anytime you want, by the way. Part of the problem with Amari Cooper is that was not that music, silly. You know what music I meant.
I do.
Okay. Part of the reason why he had so many targets was because Buffalo was down like double digits in the second half last week. So Josh Allen's trying to dig them out of a hole. He's throwing to his perimeter receivers. He's trying to have somebody who can make a play, especially against man coverage. That's Amari Cooper. It's something that we didn't necessarily expect to see because we haven't really seen that.
And it's the game of the week, yeah! It's the Bills and the Lions. It's a Super Bowl 59 preview. And it's the game of the week. Hey! You know,
before week 15,
you have to go with the chalk.
Before week 14, and I'm glad you did, Amari Cooper was on the field for a grand total of 18 plays when the Bills were losing. That's by any deficit, 1 point, 10 points, whatever. They're not behind very often. And so if you think that they're going to be behind against Detroit, which is possible.
It's the game. No, sorry. I had to surprise you at something.
Am I that boring? I mean, come on. I think that Cooper is not a great start this week. I would be nervous using him. I think you're chasing points if you go after what he did last week. It might be different if Keon Coleman was out and if Dalton Kincaid was out. If they were out, then I might be more interested in Cooper.
Okay. Cooper, I'm sorry if you said this. I was planning the music. Cooper or Jameson Williams?
Jameson.
All right. Can't see anybody starting Coleman. And Kincaid has a terrible matchup. The Lions have allowed the fewest fantasy points to tight ends. They're very good in this category, even though Kraft scored last week. He had 41 yards and a touchdown. So low-end starter, we'll call Dalton Kincaid. Start Hunter Henry over him, for example. Jared Goff. All right, so here's your non-scary stat of the game, and it's good and bad. So there have been 4 games this year where the Lions have given up more than 20 fantasy points. Jared Goff has scored 31.2, 22.8, 11.8, and 28 fantasy points. That's 2 great games, 1 good game, and 1 terrible game. The terrible game was the 5 interception game at Houston. But usually when they give up points, he scores a lot of points, including last week. However, in those games, only 18, 25, 30, 41 pass attempts. It's not a guarantee he's going to throw a lot. But Jamie, how confident are you in Jared Goff this week?
I mean, Vegas expects this to be a high-scoring game. You saw what this Bills defense looked like last week. They are at home. Goff has gotten 6 straight games of 20-plus points at home, and we know that's typically where he plays at his best. So everything sets up for this to be a great game for Jared Goff. It's just a matter of, do they want to play bully ball and run on you and limit the pass attempts? And he's just, relying on touchdowns. So there's really no reason to say sit Jared Goff by any stretch. It's just a matter of, like, you have one of these rare examples of Jalen Hurts versus Jared Goff, or if you have Kyler Murray versus Jared Goff, or I don't think Jameis or Richardson qualify as some of the streaming options.
Tua.
Yeah, Tua, Jared Goff is a great.
I'm starting Tua.
I think they're somewhat similar in terms of they're not going to run. You're hoping for, the touchdowns to be there because the volume should certainly be there for Tua, but the matchup and everything sort of suggests that Goff should have an opportunity to play well here too, because they're in the building, and Vegas is saying huge game coming. So this is also an MVP showdown, for 2 guys that are, well within the race. So you wonder how much that matters to Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson to allow Jared Goff to, show that he deserves this award if he comes out and wins this game and wins it because of a big statistical game. So, I mean, we're splitting here. So you're starting Jared Goff if you have him.
Okay. Yeah, I do think he's one of those guys that people have Goff and someone else because he wasn't not like Josh Allen where he was drafted so high. But I see Jared Goff or Bo Nix. That's an easy one. We're going Jared Goff. I'll look for more questions here from the chat. All right, let's go to the wide receivers. You are starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. You guys have him in your top 8. Heath has him 15th. 3 straight games with 6 to 7 targets, no touchdowns, and 12.3 or fewer fantasy points. It's ugly, but you got to feel like he's due. And then Jameson Williams is, I guess, kind of a flex. I mean, it's encouraging stuff. He has a 20% target share right around there in 5 straight games. He's not just a downfield guy anymore, but he has 0 end zone targets since week 3 and 2 red zone targets since week 3. So it's hard. He has to score on a big play, it seems.
I would argue he's developed a safe floor. He has at least 5 catches in 3 straight games, 4 catches in 4 straight games. One of those games was a dud, 5 catches for 28 yards, but the other ones, 11 plus PPR points. Like, I think that he's a pretty reliable flex at this point. And you know that he's got the upside to finish as a top 20 wide receiver.
Jamison Williams or Keenan Allen?
I have Williams higher.
I would take Allen in PPR.
Jamison Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Jameson.
I have Marvin higher.
Go Marvin.
Sam Laporta or Dalton Kincaid?
Laporta.
I have Kincaid one spot higher. I do not know if I'm going to stick with that.
And the Bills are 5th best against tight ends, but unlike the Lions, they haven't faced the toughest competition. They just were great against Kelsey and Kittle in the snow. But all right, sit the DSTs. Let's go to Chicago at Minnesota. Here is your I already gave the stat of the game. Oh, sorry, that was loud. Scary Friday the 13th stat of the game. DeAndre Swift against tough run defenses, tough matchups. He has been horrendous. Single-digit PPR fantasy points in 4 of 5 games against teams with good run defenses. Okay, now I can say it, right? We can sit DeAndre Swift.
I would hope that you sit DeAndre Swift.
Okay. Non-scary stat of the game, number 1. The Vikings have the highest interception rate on defense, but Caleb Williams has the 3rd lowest interception rate in the NFL. And non-scary stat of the game, number 2. DJ Moore has averaged 4 of his 5 highest yards per route run games, or he's had 4 of his 5 highest yards per route run games since the change in offensive coordinator. He's been very efficient since that happened. All right. I did want to talk more about the Bears passing game because I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at what happened a couple of weeks ago in this matchup. This is completely different than the San Francisco game. And Dave, I would disagree with you about the offensive line. They have the 7th lowest pressure rate over the last 4 weeks. They've gotten healthy, the Bears. They haven't been bad there.
He was sacked 7 times last week, Adam.
Yeah, but a lot of that's on him scrambling and whatnot and extending.
But I think that's what Dave was alluding to, and I agree, is that he feels like he took a little bit of a step back. And I also think that part of this is, Brian Flores has now seen him once, and they're going to throw some different blitz packages at him that he may not be ready for. To me, this feels like a game where the receivers will get their numbers, but I don't think we're going to see a great game from Caleb Williams. And I think we'll get some, this is where you get a 1 touchdown game from one of the 3 guys, and we may see finally Caleb turn the ball over. Just that hasn't happened, so the interceptions have been something he's limited, which is good for him. It's also bad for the receivers because that means he's not taking some chances in certain spots. So I think with the lack of a run game, the fact that Minnesota does see a lot of pass attempts, this is going to be where you see probably 8+ targets for all 3 guys. One of them has a great game, one of them has a so-so game, and one of them disappoints. And that's kind of been the trend since Thomas Brown has taken over. We've seen 1 great game, on some occasions 2 great games, and that happened the last time these teams met. Keenan Allen had a great game, DJ Moore had a great game, Romo Dunze not so much. But that's, I think, just a byproduct of a lot of volume. And I think that'll still be there for him. So I don't love Caleb Williams. I do think DJ Moore is the safest of the bunch. I think Keenan Allen's a decent number 3 receiver just based on the amount of volume that he's had since the takeover, since the change of coordinator. And Odunze, you don't want to chase the 2 touchdowns from last week, but I do think that they're starting to scheme some things up for him. And so hopefully we get some quality production if you are stuck starting.
There's also one other problem, and that's been slow starts for this Bears offense. Here's some trivia for you. How many touchdowns does Caleb Williams have through the air in his last 4 games in the first half of the last 4 games?
He was shut out last week. He was shut out on Thanksgiving. I don't remember the first Minnesota game. If he scored early, I'm going to guess probably not based on your.
You are rolling on this track.
All right, 0 then.
And then he did not score a touchdown in the.
You're starting him, hoping that he comes through for
No.
functional play in the second half.
Can I clarify something? I do not want to start Caleb Williams. It is all about the receivers. Exactly what Jamie was saying. I am not making the case. I mean, you could take a dart throw on Caleb Williams, but
he scored 30 fantasy points against him last time. It's not a dart throw. It's
I think he had the best game of any quarterback against Minnesota.
And listen, as miserable as he was last week, he still got you 18 points.
I know.
So we can sit here and say, okay, he's risky, yes. And granted, there's no teams on a bye, but if you get 18 points out of him with the chance of 30, because that's where he's been living in 3 games with a coach, coordinator change, all these things, he's not awful. I just think there's a little bit more risk involved because now you're seeing a team for the second time. This is still a rookie quarterback. I 100% agree with what Dave said. It felt like he took a little bit of a step back last week. This is 3 straight games on the road for them. That's not easy at all, especially for a young quarterback. So it just feels like it's a bad setup for him. I do think, though, the receivers are still in play because the volume is going to be there.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So that's exactly the point I was trying to make. It's about the receivers, and DJ Moore is right around 24th in the rankings. So you guys have him pretty similar to Khalil Shakir. And then it's Keenan Allen, and then it's Roma Dunze for you guys. We're going to sit Cole Kmet. Just correct me if I'm wrong here. We're going to start Sam Darnold. We talked about, we like Jared Goff a lot. Would you start Goff or Darnold?
Darnold.
Sam.
All right. You guys have him 5th, or at least you did a few days ago.
I got him 6th.
6th. Okay.
I say it sadly. Only 6th.
Aaron Jones, easy start this week? What are we thinking for Jones?
As long as he's healthy, yeah.
He's been healthy. He's running with
an injury report yesterday.
He's got a great matchup. I've got him on the border of a low-end number 1 fantasy running back.
And he was great against them 3 weeks ago, 19.9 PPR fantasy.
The Bears historically.
22 carries. And that's the thing. Everyone gets so many carries against the Bears. So he's Aaron Jones or James Cook?
Jones.
All right. How about Jordan Addison? Is he better than all of the Bears wide receivers?
Yes.
I agree.
Okay. So he's basically a must start, is what we're saying.
I mean, he lit them up the last time. He's been on fire. 2 of his last 3 games over 30 PPR points. Like, the targets have been there for him consistently for the better part of the last month. He had the down game against Arizona, but I think that's more about Arizona's defense than necessarily him. And so the only concern would be, as you brought this up, I think it was on Sunday or maybe Tuesday, about what he said in regards to knowing he's benefiting from all the attention that Justin Jefferson is getting. And
Heath brought that up.
Oh, one of you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Heath.
That, does some attention maybe shift more to him? I think that's crazy to leave Justin Jefferson alone. But it's just, you got to buy into what we've seen. You got to buy into what Darnold has done. You got to buy into Kevin O'Connell. Like, this is now, it's just so funny. Like, if you were to say Sam Darnold has been doing this, you would think Justin Jefferson's blowing away the field as the number 1 wide receiver. And he's had a great season. Don't get me wrong. Last week was great to see him finally score touchdowns. But Addison coming along the last couple of games, like, they have such a tough decision in the offseason, the Vikings do, about what to do with Sam Darnold, to keep him or let him walk.
Yeah.
And it also should make you really encouraged about what JJ McCarthy could be if he's the guy next season. So, like, you'd love it to be and by no means am I making the player comp. I'm just making the situation comp. What happened to the Chiefs? That Alex Smith was a very good quarterback. They let him walk out the door, and then they had their guy in waiting in Mahomes. McCarthy can be, if McCarthy could be Sam Darnold, imagine saying that. But if McCarthy could be Sam Darnold, Vikings are in a pretty good spot for the future.
Wow, Jamie just called JJ McCarthy the next Patrick Mahomes.
And the next Sam Darnold all at the same time.
Wow.
Next up, let's so Addison's a must start. And then what about TJ Hawkinson? We talked about Kincaid and Laporta as low-end starters. Are they both ahead of TJ Hawkinson?
Laporta, yes. Kincaid, no. If Kincaid was playing all this time, like, I'd say yes, just because they're probably in a similar spot, tough matchups. And can you trust them? I mean, I don't know how much Kincaid's going to be, even what he was, which was not a great fantasy asset. So I would take Hawkinson and hope that he has a game where he's heavily involved.
It's 8 or fewer PPR points for Hawkinson in 3 of his last 4 games. There does seem to be a little bit of an attempt, and I noticed this last week against Atlanta, for the Vikings to try and get Hawk in the end zone and that let him score. He hasn't scored yet this year, but that's the only real reason to consider starting him, is that, oh yeah, the Vikings can do whatever they want in this game. Maybe Hawkinson gets his touchdown. I've got him outside of my top 12.
And the Minnesota DST has been struggling lately. They are top 6. 6 for Jamie, 3rd for Dave, 5th for Heath. I hate DSTs this whole year. I don't like them. Green Bay's at Seattle.
I need the Ravens.
Them out of your fantasy leagues next year?
Yeah, the Ravens I'm very excited about. I have them in a few leagues this week.
No, Commissioner Azer.
Sure.
Are you going to take DSTs out of your leagues next year?
No, I don't think so. It's just
we'll do it like week 6.
There's not a single not a single DST that I think is matchup proof this year. Not a single one.
No, that's true.
Green Bay at Seattle. And speaking of improving defenses here, the Seattle Seahawks, in their little 4-1 stretch over their last 5 games, they're either 5th or 6th in points per game, yards per play allowed. They've been really good. And it's not like they faced, nothing teams. They faced
Arizona,
Rams,
twice, San Francisco.
Rams, Niners, Arizona, Jets, Arizona. So they're doing really well. But with that
They're
said,
healthy.
here is your scary stat of the game. Okay, I'm going to scare you. Friday the 13th, I'm going to scare you off of JSN. Such an obvious must start. Well, he has 16 targets in his last 3 games. Metcalf has 20, and he's been very efficient, but his target shares have been 25%, 13.8%, 17.2%. Geno Smith has 30 to 31 pass attempts in all 3 games. That's not a profile of a must-start player. Anybody scared about JSN now?
I think if he was getting more targets, we'd be talking about him as a top 10 receiver based on just his production and the role that he has and how he's performing. I think he's just a good number 2 receiver, so when you start to put him up against, let's say, CeeDee Lamb, for example, who's getting targets but not scoring touchdowns consistently, or Drake London, who's now gone through this 3-4 game touchdown less streak, like that's kind of where JSN is living. So if you believe in volume and expecting those guys to break out of their slumps, you're starting them over JSN. If you're looking at JSN as just, okay, he's just been awesome in this stretch, like, keep him in your lineup, so he's just a really good number 2 wide receiver. If he ever gets to a point where he's getting consistently 8+ targets, my gosh, he could be an absolute monster.
And I'm hopeful that Green Bay will score some points and make Geno Smith throw a little bit more. But you guys do not have Jordan Love as a starter. The bottom line is this team has morphed into a run team. They are one of the most run-heavy offenses, and Jordan Love's just not throwing that much. Josh Jacobs is obviously a must-start. So the Green Bay wide receivers, who's your favorite one, Dave?
I believe I still have Reed ranked the highest, but all of them are outside of my top 36.
Is that because Dobbs is back and you're expecting fewer snaps?
No, that's with Dobbs out. And if Dobbs plays, I don't see how any one of them can crack the top 36. It's because of what you just said. They're becoming much more of a running team. And also when everybody's healthy, and even when they're not all healthy, the targets are spread around, or sometimes you just don't get a lot of targets. Exhibit A, Jaden Reed last week. I have trust issues with all of these wide receivers. However, if I am down big and desperate, Christian Watson is one of those wide receivers that's got sky-high upside. He can get 12 PPR points in one play. I would consider him over a less appealing wide receiver that doesn't have crazy high volume, someone like DK Metcalf, if I was desperate to get somebody who is, in case I'm desperate, I'm down big, I need to make a play, that's the type of move I would make.
No one's down big. That's the good thing. You might be low score. No, but no,
you're down big if you've started, Stafford and Cooper Kupp. And
I told you I started one league. I have one league where I start Purdy and 2 Rams receivers. I'm down big.
Right, but at least you got something out of Puka. But there are some people that didn't even get that. And so if you look at the projections and you see you're a 30% favorite to win or whatever, that's when I would consider making the pivot to Watson.
Okay. Starter sit Tucker Kraft.
Very similar to Laporta, slightly ahead of Hawkinson and Kincaid. He's touchdown dependent. I think whenever you have Romeo Dobbs back, and look, last week's game you got lucky, 3 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown against Detroit. So he's going to see probably a slight dip in targets. For this question here, I would go with Laporta over Kraft and Kraft over Hawkinson.
Okay,
he has one game with 6+ targets in his last 4,
and that was without Dobbs.
All right, so sit Geno Smith, and Zach Charbonnet is a no doubt about it start if Walker's out. Jamie, what's your take on this backfield if Walker's in?
It's going to be messy, just because I think we'll see a less than 100% Walker. And does Charbonnet get more work, at least for this week, until they make sure Walker's right? Like the best case scenario is Walker sits and you don't have to worry about the headache, so you can replace Walker ahead of time, and you can get a superstar performance potentially for Zach Charbonnet. So that's the best case scenario at this point. You don't want to see Ken Walker play this week. Like I have Walker in a few leagues where I don't have Charbonnet. I don't want to deal with that headache of Walker not being 100%.
Yeah, I have Walker and Ramondre Stevenson, and it would be, when it's usually not a tough call, it would be a tough call if Walker is going to play. We'll have to see what the reports say. I doubt right now, I don't think he's going to play. But I actually didn't ask this. I totally skipped over the Lions running backs. As of right now, would you start Zach Charbonnet over either or both of the Lions running backs?
Yep.
I would.
Okay.
I'd start Charbonnet over Jacobs.
I mean, he's usually not this.
I would too.
He's usually not as good as he was last week, obviously, but 3 games this year without Ken Walker. He has scored 17.9, 25.7, and 38.3 fantasy points in full PPR. It's unbelievable. All right, Seattle wide receivers, no on Lockett, yes on JSN. JSN or Jordan Addison?
JSN.
Agreed.
And DK Metcalf is a number 3 wide receiver for you guys.
Low end.
Yeah. Okay. I don't really have much else to say. Packers allow the 9th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, so they haven't even been that good of a matchup.
And Alexander hasn't been playing consistently. He's practicing full this week. Jair Alexander.
Yeah.
And that's going to hurt Metcalf even more.
Evan Williams is I think he's been missing practice this week, though, but Jair Alexander has missed most of the games. And in their last 8 games, Green Bay has allowed more than 65 yards to only 2 wide receivers. That's pretty impressive.
They've been good. I think it's 4 touchdowns to wide receivers in their past 5 games, and good.
2 of those were Tim Patrick.
Yeah, seriously. And then like one of those Tim Patrick plays, easily the type of play that DK Metcalf could score. And actually both of them. Metcalf is good enough to win in short yardage. But I'm nervous about Metcalf overall. I'm worried about Geno. And I'm starting to kind of get the feeling that this could be more of a defensive game. Offensive game.
Yeah.
I don't know what the total is for this one. And I'm glad you didn't pick this for game of the week.
I thought about it.
This game, I wonder if this game lets us down like the Thursday night one. Maybe not to that extent.
It's a 46-point total. It's pretty
high.
Yeah,
I think the under is going to come in.
Okay. I could see it. Defenses are playing well, especially Seattle's, but there's a lot of firepower on this field. Jordan Love is interesting. If you could just tell me he's going to throw 30 times, he's a start. But it just does not happen anymore. He's still playing pretty well. All right, we're going to take a break. New England at Arizona when we come back on Fantasy Football Today.
Historic rivals with unforgettable seasons meet in a game of honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA. December 14th on CBS.
Uh-oh. Scary stat of the game for New England at Arizona. Hunter Henry fans, beware. Oh, that was too quick. We got to... Arizona has held Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta, Zach Ertz, Tucker Kraft, Jonnu Smith, and TJ Hawkinson to 6 or fewer PPR fantasy points. They did give up big games to George Kittle and Will Dissly, but for the most part, Arizona's been very good against tight ends. Anybody afraid of Hunter Henry this week? Hunter, like Jason Voorhees?
If you look at it, there's only been, I think it's 3, but it might be 2, and the 2 that you referenced, of tight ends that have had 6+ targets against the Cardinals.
Yes.
And so they don't see a lot of volume from that position. So that's the one thing that benefits Henry is he's most likely going to get volume. He's at 8+ targets in 3 of his last 4 games and pretty consistently around 8 targets with Drake May starting. So based on his role in the offense and how much they will lean on him, I think Hunter Henry still has a shot to be a top 10 tight end. Now you have to worry about the random Austin Hooper touchdown, which has hurt us a little bit over the last 3 or 4 games. But I think just based on his role in the offense and understanding what he should be able to do, I'm going to still start him as a top 8 tight end. So I like Zach Ertz better, in terms of guys that are potentially available. But behind like the slam dunk must start guys, I think Hunter Henry's still in that conversation.
Hunter Henry is basically their number 1 wide receiver. He's averaging 7.6 targets per game in his past 5. That's all with Drake May.
Drake May is also an interesting flyer here because he runs so much. In his starts, he's averaging 41.6 rushing yards per game in his 8 starts. He left one of those games early, so he could have kind of a crummy game and end up with 20 or more points. And I was wondering, why did these guys like Kyler Murray so much? Well, here's our non-scary stat of the game. He's only had 1 matchup all year against a team that currently ranks bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. So Kyler's actually had a pretty tough schedule. I didn't realize that. He scored 34.5 fantasy points in that game. It was against the Rams. The Patriots are just awful against quarterbacks. So you guys do like Kyler. I think you said you like...
Look at the last 3 guys against them. Stafford, Tua, and Anthony Richardson. And they all went nuts.
Yeah. And Kyler, so you guys like him better than Goff?
No.
I don't.
4 point, yes. In 6 points, no. But they're so close.
All right. And so for the Patriots, it's Henry. We're not going to start a wide receiver. We're not going to start May. But what about Ramondre? Somebody said in the chat, see if I can find it. Something like, oh, here it is. Jamie, you have Ramondre Stevenson one spot behind Marvin Harrison, but everybody else has at least 10 spots between those two. Why so close between Ramondre and Marvin?
I mean, you look at first off what happened to this Cardinals run defense last week, and Stevenson's coming back from a game with fresh legs. I don't think he's a slam dunk start by any stretch, but he is a top 24 running back. And what has Marvin Harrison done to say he's like, oh my gosh, he's that great? He's had very up and down performances this season. So to me, they're very similar type of players. You're hoping for one of them to find the end zone. I think this is a game where Stevenson will hopefully get 15 to 20 total touches. I don't think necessarily this is a game where the Cardinals run away from the Patriots early. I think they'll pull away late. So I think Stevenson has an opportunity in the beginning part of the game to be somewhat trustworthy. And look, if he scores, you're going to be happy about it.
I don't think he can come anywhere close to what Charbonnet did.
Of course.
No. I mean, Charbonnet had 7 catches, had almost 200 total yards, and 22 carries. Like it's got to be
50% of that. It's a great day for Stevenson.
I agree, but it's got to be that specific game script for Ramondre Stevenson. And if it's not anywhere close to that specific game script where the Patriots are playing in a close game or have a lead, then he's terrible. Like he doesn't even play. And if we're thinking Arizona's going to just, run the ball well and Kyler's going to have a great game, then what are the odds that Ramondre can come through? I think he's more of a touchdown or bust type of fantasy running back, low end number 2 rusher for me this week. I'm starting Dowdle over him. I'm starting Rashad White if there's
totally.
Irving over him. I would have started Garendo over him. That proved a mistake.
James Cook?
Starting James Cook over him. I haven't decided yet on the Jets running backs versus Ramondre. If there's one guy that I think can continue, if Isaiah Davis, if I think he can continue to pick up those high value touches, I will start him over Ramondre as well.
I'm not there, but he's right in that, right behind Cook and Taylor, right in the same canoe with Najee Harris and Sincere McCormick and the Jets guys. Huh?
Tyrone Tracy?
And Tracy, yep. And Pacheco.
If anybody didn't see what I was rowing, canoeing, paddling. Questions from the chat. Kyrie Irving? Kyler Murray? Kyler Murray or Jameis Winston?
Kyler.
I believe I have Jameis higher than Kyler.
Kyler Murray or Tua Tagovailoa?
Tua in 6 points, Kyler in 4.
I'll take Tua either way.
And let's see what else we got in this game. James Conner is a start. Marvin Harrison. We haven't mentioned Christian Gonzalez, and I'm glad Heath is here because he would scoff at me for mentioning Christian Gonzalez. But I think Christian Gonzalez is very good, and I do think he's going to follow Harrison a lot and make things difficult on him.
Right.
We'll see.
Are you sure that he's not going to follow Trey McBride a lot?
I'm pretty confident that it will be Harrison, but no, I'm not sure. And start Trey McBride. I guess I'll do Harrison's always someone we get a lot of questions about, so I'll do some more Harrison ones. Marvin Harrison or AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
Brown, Harrison, Smith.
That's how I have it.
Marvin Harrison
much closer to Smith.
Darnell Mooney or Marvin Harrison?
Mooney.
Same.
So definitely London over him. How about Jacoby Myers or Harrison?
Jacoby.
How about Sincere McCormick or Marvin Harrison in half PPR?
Ew. I'll take Marvin.
I'll take McCormick if Aiden O'Connell plays.
All right, let's go to Arizona's DST is top 8. You can start them. Top 4 for Dave and Jamie. Dallas is at Carolina. Uh-oh.
And if you have a bye, pick up the Cardinals defense now, if you haven't done so already.
Who do they have next week? Not the Giants.
The
Panthers. Panthers are getting pretty.
Yeah, but it's still like this could be a good 2-game stretch for the Cardinals DST.
I might pick them up if I can't get my hands on the Falcons.
We have the Giants.
Yes.
Scary stat of the game about CeeDee Lamb. Uh-oh. In their last 5 games, Mike Evans, who had a huge game against Carolina, is the only wide receiver with more than 50 yards against the Panthers. Hit that up again. This includes the Saints with a backup quarterback and Olave getting injured, but also Malik Neighbors, DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. Did I scare anybody off of CeeDee Lamb?
No.
Good.
Because you're talking about teams that doesn't throw the ball a lot in those matchups.
Yes, actually. Cooper Rush in his last 4 games. Now, he was absolutely horrible. I'm throwing out that Philadelphia game. It was so bad. In his last 4 games, he has the 3rd most pass attempts in the NFL, the 9th most passing yards. He throws very short all the time. They get very few chunk plays, but a ton of targets for CeeDee Lamb. So Lamb is a start for you guys. I think I maybe asked you this earlier, but Dowdle or Lamb, who's better?
Lamb in PPR, Dowdle everywhere else.
I have Lamb higher in PPR.
All right, I'm excited for Dowdle. I think we're all probably excited for Dowdle. We see the trends. He's getting a lot of carries. They're playing competitive games, and he's got another good matchup. I'm doubt there's going to be any interest in Brandon Cooks. What about Jake Ferguson? Anybody like Jake Ferguson this week against a team that gives up the most fantasy points to tight ends?
It's a very similar situation with Hunter Henry. I like Ferguson a little bit better than Laporta and the other guys we talked about, Kraft and those guys. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet this season, so take that into account if you're talking non-PPR. But the matchup is, like you said, it's so good. And so hopefully he does take advantage of it, and we see the best of Jake Ferguson. I wish they would have used him a little bit more earlier in the game last week. I don't know how much of that was, shake the rust off from the 2-game layoff with the concussion. He finished with 6 targets. Hopefully that will be the floor. This is a great breakout game coming for Jake Ferguson if they lean on him, and I think they will.
Top 10 fantasy PPR tight end.
Now, someone in our chat, Doug, said that J.C. Horn is out. That is actually not true. He is limited.
No, he's out on the field crushing it.
That's a big deal, but it's not really going to change your.
Wait, is he out for real?
No, he's limited in practice. It's not true. It was wrong. All right, on the other side of the ball,
Yes, we're playing well though.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard. Why is it that? This might be a waste of time, but I'll ask anyway. Dave, give me 15 seconds on this. Why is it that Chuba Hubbard is clearly better than Rico Dowdle? They're both starts, but everyone's got Hubbard ahead.
Might have more work, certainly has the better body of work compared to Rico. The matchup is good against Dallas. On top of that, DeMarvion Overshown being out, I think that hurts the Cowboys. We know that Hubbard can contribute in the passing game. And who's going to take him off the field? There are moments, there aren't a lot of moments, but there are moments when Rico leaves and it's Hunter Lepke and Ezekiel Elliott. Speaking of Friday the 13th, like they're playing and Dowdle isn't. All the other running backs are hurt in Carolina, and Chuba's been playing awesome this year. I had a hard time keeping him out of my top 12.
Jahmyr Gibbs or Chuba Hubbard?
It's Gibbs.
Hubbard for me.
Oh.
I've got Hubbard over Montgomery.
Montgomery has been catching more passes than Gibbs.
I'd play Montgomery over Gibbs too.
Yeah, I don't have that decision to make, but
I had that last week. I don't have it this week.
Okay, it's Adam Thielen. He is a top 24-ish, right? 26 wide receiver. Heath's a little bit lower on Thielen, but it's just with what he did against Philadelphia. It's funny. I was thinking about these guys who just run short area routes a lot and play out of the slot. Sorry. You can correct me. But these kind of guys, they almost feel like a little matchup proof because they're not going to get shut down by a cornerback or anything like that. But
no, and I'm not going to correct you on that. That's true. But of his 11 targets last week, 6 of them were on passes of 12-plus air yards. So Thielen isn't just, run 4 yards, turn around, get the target, try and make a play after the catch. He's used downfield a little bit, and his route running and the way that he uses leverage against defensive backs, it buys him a step still. So he's not fast. Don't make any mistake about that, but he can still get open. He can still make plays. And I think he's going to continue to see a large volume of targets from Bryce Young, who, for what it's worth, not playing great football, but he's better. And because he's better, that helps Thielen kick down the door of getting north of 15 PPR points. I think he's a borderline number 2 fantasy wideout.
All right, I'm going to read some Thielen questions and we'll move on. Thielen or Waddle, non-PPR?
Man, they got 1 touchdown each, I think, in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Thielen's a little safer.
To me, Thielen is the slam dunk in full PPR. I have Thielen 1 spot ahead of Waddle in non-PPR.
To me, they're very similar in both formats. I think Thielen's the clear-cut number 1 guy there. Waddle can clearly disappear.
Thielen or Jamison Williams?
Thielen.
Same.
Thielen or Khalil Shakir?
Shakir, but they're, again, similar.
Yeah, they're the same guy. Okay.
Back in my PPR rankings.
Washington's at New Orleans. I already gave the scary stat of the game. Kamara only 30 carries in 3 games without Derek Carr. All of them were losses by 18 or more points. I also think Kendry Miller gave them a little spark last week and could factor in. What are you thinking about Kamara, Jamie?
I'm nervous. I started the week with him ranked 18th. I moved him up to around 14th. Just concerned, so non-PPR, he's very scary because just no touchdowns, like you said, so the catches don't matter. So he's a low-end number 2 running back in non-PPR. He's a mid-tier running back in PPR because while he has been great in the stretch, as you alluded to, he's been in that like 12 to 15 point range. So the couple of games where he was at 12, like that's really disappointing. And this Washington defense is rested coming off a bye week. They are, somewhat competent against the run. They haven't been slam dunk against the run. But it's also the quarterback situation. That's the scariest thing about this. And you wonder if, first off, how much is this illness going to be a problem? We've seen these, situations creep up here and there with some guys not 100%. They have nothing to play for at this point. He's signed his contract extension. He's done everything that this team could have asked for from him this year at 29 years old. He's certainly done everything fantasy managers could have asked for when you called him the biggest sleeper of the year. So he's come through in a big way. I just wonder, like, if not 100%, want to see a little bit more of Kendry Miller, don't want to risk him getting hurt with a backup quarterback there. Like, I'm a little concerned. So like we were doing an all-concern team, he'd be on the all-concern team.
He had the 5-star lock matchup of the week last week.
Yeah.
And did not come through anywhere close to expectations against the Giants. Now it's the Commanders, who have allowed 11 or fewer PPR points to running backs in 4 of their past 5 games. Only Saquon on a short week was able to crunch up on the Commanders. I am nervous. He is a number 2 fantasy running back and not even like top half, even in full PPR. And if he's going to keep losing like valuable touches to Kendry Miller, then I'm kind of looking for the exit door here. I'm starting Dowdle over him.
But again, this is the good thing with Kamara. First of all, it's not a certainty that he's going to lose these high-value touches to Miller. They were both in on the play. It was first and goal at the 8-yard line. Miller scored a touchdown. But in the last 7 games, he has not scored. He's on pace for 1,839 total yards and 87 catches. He is number 17 per game in half PPR, number 13 per game in full PPR, without a touchdown in his last 7 games. That is a hell of a floor. However, another factor here that just goes against him. I don't know that even you should care, but Dan Quinn, one of his specialties on defense, they are always great. The Cowboys and now the Commanders against pass-catching running backs. They give up the 4th fewest receiving yards to pass-catching running backs. He had a good receiving game against the Chiefs, and they're even better. But that's just another thing working against Alvin Kamara. So he's a tough call in this game. The Commanders guys are really not tough calls. You guys have Jaden Daniels as a top 4 quarterback. Brian Robinson, you guys like plenty. Terry McLaurin is a must-start guy. He's top 12 for everybody. Actually, 20th for Heath in full PPR, but top 12 for you guys. And Zach Ertz is top 9 for everybody. So it's really just Kamara, I think, is the only tough call in this game. I've seen some questions about Juwan Johnson, but we're really getting away from him if we can, right?
I think you should, just until you see one game with the quarterback situation, if you can afford it. Clearly, it's playoff time. So, like if the choice was Dalton Schultz or Juwan Johnson, I'm going Dalton Schultz based on his matchup. If the choice is Juwan Johnson or Cole Kmet, I'm going Juwan Johnson, just because Kmet's been such a disappearing act. So, look, somebody's going to have to catch passes here. Hopefully, it's going to be Juwan Johnson.
Hopefully, it's going to be Kamara.
Well, you know what I mean. Besides,
yeah. Johnson or Kincaid is a question we have here.
I mean, Kincaid's obviously somewhat safer because of his quarterback, but again, shake the rust off game. This is a coin toss to me, so I probably lean toward offense and go with Kincaid.
Right. I'm going to lean toward offense, quarterback, and probably the game that'll be more high scoring.
I asked for some Kamara questions in the chat. I think we got a couple of easy ones. Kamara or Swift?
Kamara
or McCormick?
Kamara.
A to the K.
Yeah. Kamara or DK Metcalf?
Kamara.
Alvin.
Kamara or Rico Dowdle or Brian Thomas Jr., half PPR?
Half is tough. Half is definitely tough. I would go with Dowdle in half in this.
I'm definitely taking both Dowdle and Thomas over Kamara.
Yeah.
I might do that full PPR too, man.
Sorry. Kamara or Jacoby Myers?
Kobe.
I'll still go Kamara there if it's Ritter.
All right, Baltimore's at the Giants, our last game. Uh-oh. I don't like this.
How come you say "uh-oh" every time?
Scary stuff. Scary stat of the game. Are you ready? I'm going to scare you off Lamar Jackson. No quarterback has scored more than 25 points against the Giants all season. 4 straight have scored 18 or fewer. Huh? Isn't that weird? They just lost a starting safety for this season, but
Tyler Newman's done. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, still Lamar Jackson. That's a good call.
All right, here's scarier stat. So I looked at the Ravens wins by 10 or more points. Because what do we say? They're 16-point favorites on the road.
Something like that.
Jackson's been great in all 3 of these games. They have 3 wins by 10 or more points. Derrick Henry's been 25 or more fantasy points in all 3 of them. It's Flowers and Andrews who have really struggled. Flowers has 2, 1, and 6 targets in those 3 games. Andrews has 1, 4, and 2 targets. Each of them has 1 huge game and 2 absolutely dreadful games. And you know where it is, right? It's just a pass attempts thing. How much are they going to have to throw? So we're starting Jackson. We're starting Henry. What about Flowers and Andrews, Dave?
I'm starting Andrews. He's just absolutely locked in as a red zone target for Lamar Jackson. I think they'll get into the red zone against the Giants. Zay Flowers is the one who makes me nervous because if Lamar doesn't have to throw that much, I'm worried about just what type of target volume there will be for Zay Flowers. I know that when they're in the red zone and inside the 10, Zay Flowers isn't the same type of priority. And so he's in that flex conversation for me, not a top 24 wide receiver.
Mark Andrews or Sam Laporta?
Mark
Andrews.
Zach Ertz or Mark Andrews?
Hurts.
Andrews.
All right. Flowers or Addison?
Jordan.
Addison.
Flowers or Jamison Williams?
JMO.
Flowers.
Flowers or Neighbors? Oh, you answered that one earlier, but we'll do it again.
Neighbors.
I have Neighbors higher.
All right, so let's go over to the Giants side of the ball. I really don't want to start Tyrone Tracy at all.
No kidding.
Even though DeVito does throw to running backs a lot. In the one game he played with Tommy DeVito, he had, what was that? That was Tampa Bay. He had 9 carries and 4 catches, but only 9 fantasy points. And they got blown out. They were down like 31-0 or something in that game. So that was a bad example, but it could very well happen again. And then Neighbors. Yeah, I'm okay with Neighbors. You guys have him around 27th, 30th, something like that.
Let's do some over-unders. And I'm making these numbers up, so this isn't anything in the sports book.
The Jamie Eisenberg Sportsbook.
4.5 sacks.
MGM.
4.5 sacks for the Ravens.
Over.
Oh, Heath said that DeVito takes a ton of sacks. So, yeah, I'll go over.
Okay. 1.5 interceptions for DeVito.
Under. He doesn't throw the interceptions.
2.5 fumbles for the
Going to get
Giants.
sacked too much.
2.5 fumbles. I'll take the under. That's so many fumbles.
Like in the game?
In the team.
Yeah, under.
Tracy will have a fumble. DeVito, yeah, I'll take the under. If it was 1.5, I might take the over.
Let's go 1.5. You go over?
Yeah, I might take the over there. What a friendly sports book. Just change the line like
Take
that.
the under. I'll take the under.
9.5 total points for the Giants.
Under.
I'll say they get 10.
Ridiculous to go under there, but yeah. Give me like some Neighbors props.
Let's go 4.5 catches.
Over.
Yeah.
But under 4.5 yards.
55.5 yards.
I was going to suggest 60.
Perfect number. I'll take.
Yeah, that's a good number.
I'll take the slightly over.
I will too.
And half touchdown.
Way under.
He won't even get a quarter of a touchdown.
400 for that.
Wait a minute, he did get a third of a touchdown last week.
He had a 2-pointer. That's right. Wait, Jerry Jeudy or Neighbors? That's easy. That's Neighbors. Neighbors or Downs?
What?
I mean, sorry, that's Jeudy. Jeudy. Neighbors or Downs?
Downs.
I'll take Downs.
Am I a good neighbor? Yes, I am a good neighbor. I think I am anyway. Devontae Smith or Malik Neighbors?
Neighbors in PPR.
He's one spot ahead of Smith for me. Neighbors is.
Neighbors or Sincere McCormick, half PPR?
I'll take Sincere.
I'll take Neighbors.
And then someone actually asked Tracy or Sincere McCormick.
In full PPR, it's Neighbors.
And Start Thielen over Neighbors. Okay. Neighbors or Najee Harris? Last question for today.
Najee.
That is it for fantasy football today. Good luck, everybody, except for Jamie in the fantasy football today league.
Congratulations.
Stop. All right.
CBS Sports Network, Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Watch us talk about Week 15 all over again.
Yes, gamer Eric, you should pick up the Falcons. They face the Giants next week. For Dave and Jamie and Claire, I'm Adam. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Mailbag at 11:15 a.m. Eastern, FYI, if you're watching live. We'll see you then. Bye.
2 words for you.